Good morning everyone out there on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, or X as it's called. Okay, so I'm going to tell you all about GB Energy, right? The government's introduced it, you know all about it. I've told you all it was my idea, they stole it, blah, 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 blah. Right, so I'm going to tell you what its purpose is, okay? How it was supposed to work, how it was going to be successful, and why it matters to every single one of you, okay? Every single one of you in the UK, it mattered to you, okay? So in 2017, I handed my manifesto to help the country and solve the upcoming problems I foreseen, the energy crisis, to the Corbyn administration, because I knew with him being a socialist, that he would want national industry. He wants the people to control the resources, not private companies exploit us for it, you know? So he was the most obvious candidate to do it. So I handed the Labour Party in 2017 my manifesto, 10-point manifesto I think it was, including GB Energy. Now, the reason why I did this was because our problem in this country isn't the price of energy, it isn't, you know, inflation. Realistically, our biggest problem in this country is our national debt. Now, I'll explain quickly. So, we currently owe ourselves like £3 trillion. So, we pay interest on that debt and we have to pay for the debt. And we're paying so much because of our debt and just creating more that we don't actually have the money to deal with crises and problems that come up on a regular basis, like storms and free school meals, you know, these sorts of things. We can't afford it because we pay more towards the debt. Now, I can't owe myself £1 billion and call myself a billionaire. So we can't owe ourselves £3 trillion and have no money spare and call ourselves a rich country. We have no money for a crisis. We have no money. We didn't even have enough money to make the new high-speed railway from the south of England to the north. They got like halfway up the country and was like, we can't really afford anymore. Fuck them northerners. Typical, really. But they can't afford it. We can't even afford decent trains, decent buses. Like, we can't afford nothing because of this national debt. We can't afford to resolve that immigration problem. We can't afford to enforce the law by hiring more police officers and training them. We can't afford fucking nothing. So the only option to make money is to raise taxes, unfortunately, or sell assets. And that's what they've been doing for the last 20 years. Selling off assets like our gold, our industries, to private companies to make a quick bit of money to try and cover a problem short term, and then we're left with no income to resolve problems later on. So my solution to all this was national industry. You know, we should have a national broadband company, national energy company, national water company, national bus company, national rail company, national housing company for building houses and selling them on the private market. The reason being, because we've been running on something called neoliberal economics since the 70s. And this is basically where you run your country's budget on a deficit, where you lose more money than you make. And this is done to grow the private sector and grow the businesses so that you get more back in tax returns than you've lost by getting a budget profit or surplus instead of a deficit. Now, in neoliberal economics, you're supposed to have a budget surplus, so a profit, once every few years. You know, maybe once every 8 years in neoliberal economics, you're supposed to have a surplus to ensure that the public sector can be supplemented for its loss, because essentially you're siphoning your public sector to grow the private sector. And because now we have the private sector operating inside the public sector, it means it's basically just been draining it and draining it and draining it. And once in a while, you're supposed to, you know, boost it back up to match so that it doesn't just get destroyed and wiped off the map, like the NHS, fire brigades, you know, ambulances, these sorts of things, right? And we haven't had a surplus or a budget profit in, literally, I think my lifetime we've had one budget surplus, maybe 2001, 2002, Labour. There was one the year before I was born in 1989, I think by the Tories. I think that was their last one. So the Tories haven't even made a budget profit. They haven't made a profit on a budget in 34 years. Now, you can't imagine any business in the world, like Google or McDonald's or Starbucks, could ever survive for 35 years without making a profit and do well. They just can't. They would be bankrupt. They would be sold off, stripped of assets to their competitors, and what was previously McDonald's would be a Pizza Hut or a KFC. Right? That'd be what happened. You can't endlessly run on a deficit, because eventually you run out of the asset. If you run on a deficit of food, you will starve. You run on a deficit of money, eventually you go bankrupt. You have no money. You just create debt and debt and debt and debt, and you have no way to pay the debt, which we are currently in. We have so much debt, and we pay so much debt, we can't pay it. The only solution to this is to change the direction of this country. We can't keep going down this path of more debt and more debt. I refuse outright to hand my daughter and all the children in this country and the future of this country debt. Imagine your parents pass away and they hand you a £300,000 mortgage to pay that they didn't pay. You've got to pay their car. You've got to pay all their fines they didn't pay. You know, you've got to pay their mate Bob, who they owed a fiver to. Imagine instead of leaving you a windfall when your family passed away, they left you a debt and a burden. So much so that you wouldn't even have a way to buy your way out of it. You couldn't work your way out of it. You couldn't do anything out of it. You're literally trapped and disabled financially as a result. Imagine that. And that's what we're doing to the future of this country. Every person who's ever going to be born in the United Kingdom from this point onwards is saddled with this $3 trillion debt. £3 trillion debt, sorry. The Americans have $30 trillion worth of debt, which is why Trump and Musk are doing all this cuts. They know that if they don't turn this financial situation around in America of not being profitable, eventually the world will lose confidence in the dollar and switch our reserve currency to whatever is best, the euro or the yen, whatever is the most, maybe it's India, maybe it'll be rubles, who knows, who knows. A lot can happen in 50 years, right? India could be the most powerful country in the world in 50 years. None of us know. We have no clue, right? So, the point is, I came up with these ideas to make the country money. Now, you can't set up a burger shop next to McDonald's. You can't set up a sandwich shop next to Subway, when you could. But you probably lose money. But the actual resources that are essential to our lives, like water, energy, communications, broadband, gas, these should be public controlled assets where the taxpayer is not only in control of it, but is rewarded for its success. So, with GB Energy, it was supposed to be the case that the taxpayer owns it, all of us own it, and it makes money, and we get rewarded for it. We're basically shareholders in this, okay? We get rewarded for our taxpayers, our tax money getting invested in national industry. And we would use the national industry to help ourselves with that. Now, people will ask the obvious question, how could you ensure this industry, this national industry, GB Energy, is going to make a profit? And this is where Labour have fucked up. Because they should have brought me on board, they should have asked how it was going to work, how it was all going to work, and this is how it works, you see. Because it's a national industry, you can make it tax exempt. Because it's the taxpayers owning the national company, and it's a public company operating in the private sector, to balance out this siphoning that's been going on due to neoliberal economics. I know these are fancy words, but it's just the terminology, I'm sorry. So, that way, we can undercut every private energy company in this country could not compete. Because we don't have to pay VAT on the company. Like the company, GB Energy, should not have to pay tax, should not have to pay VAT, because it's owned by the taxpayers. So why are we going to tax the company the taxpayer owns? It would just hamper its effort in the market. And it's not illegal. We're not breaking any world trade rules by making a company tax exempt. We're not trying to commandeer a market. All we're doing is securing the financial energy security of this country. If you had all done this in 2017 when I told everyone to do it, it would have saved you thousands over the last, 8 years? Thousands. Every family in this country would have been saved a minimum of £1,000 if you all just fucking listened. Because at the end of the day, I do know what I'm talking about. And with a national company that is owned by a taxpayer, it can be exempt from taxes. So it has the ability to offer the product and services at a cheaper rate than a private company does, which are subject to the taxes. and conditions. So they can't compete. So not only would the taxpayers be investing in their own company to make themselves money, they would be able to get the services and products cheaper and know that it was helping their country and their family's future. And with this renewable energy plan, my plan was GB Energy was supposed to control all the national charging stations. They were supposed to control all the wind farms that get built, and they were supposed to manage all the green energy grants for the solar panels and wind turbines that were given to housing residential properties. It was supposed to manage all my little things, like the wind turbines in the drainage systems and the sewer systems, so every time it rained and snowed, this country was making money. It was all interlinked to make sure that this country not only could make money, but made so much money, we could literally pay off our debt, secure our energy and financial future, and we could sort this country out. It was very simple. Now, people think national industry is going to fail, and it will only fail if they do it wrong, and they're doing it wrong. I guarantee you, because they've set up GB Energy, they've made my idea a real thing. It's in law. The King's shrined it in. I know you all don't believe it's my idea. Fine. I've got the proof. I don't care. But if they knew what they were doing, they would have made it tax exempt. And I guarantee they haven't done it. And I guarantee they haven't foreseen the infrastructure that it should have been overseeing. Like the renewable energy sectors. Like GB Energy is supposed to be like this British powerhouse which makes money from how shit our weather is and exports it all to the continent at market value. But because it's tax exempt, we're actually able to produce it cheaper than the market value energy is produced, because that's private. So we're actually saving maybe 20-30% on the production of this energy and the transport of this energy compared to a private company. So the profit margin is even greater. So we're going to be making even more money than we should be if it was just a standard company. And this is how I know they haven't got a fucking clue. They're ruining my perfectly decent ideas, and they're going to put their own person in charge, you know, some Labour stooge, some desk jockey, and he's going to take a cheque in the post to do what they say. Like, it's going to be a Labour asset that they have used to gain influence and control over the UK economy and system and political landscape. They're not doing it to help me, they're not doing it to help this country, and they're doing it wrong. So, I just wanted to tell you all about how the country is doing GB Energy wrong. I know you won't believe it's my idea. I don't really care. It is. So I just want you to know that if you'd all listened to me in 2017, fair enough, I was insane. You know, granted, I was insane. I would have saved you all a lot of money. A lot of fucking money. But you just don't listen. You literally think I'm some lunatic in the north with no idea what he's talking about, and I get it. I am a lunatic in the north, but I do know what I'm talking about. And you need someone like me in the government who can solve these problems, not people who are a face of an organisation. You need a real problem solver. And the fact of the matter is, they're just never going to give a person like me that job. So this is my only way to tell you, is to go on social media, explain what I've done, explain how they've done it wrong, explain how I would have done it and why it would have been successful. And that's it. All I can do is tell you the truth. I have a lot of power and influence, but I can't take on governments. I can't just walk into Westminster and take over. I'm not a criminal. I'm not a war criminal. You'd all literally have to give me your confidence, like Ali G, and I'd be like, walk in there and just bollock them, you know? I'd walk in there like Ali G and bollock them for not only stealing my ideas and not crediting me, but for for fucking it up, because it's literally the future of our country, and they're fucking it up. I came up with a way to solve all these problems, and not only did you all not listen, but when they did finally listen and steal them, they're now fucking them up. So excuse me for being a little pissed off. Fuck's sake. But if anyone would like to know further details about GB Energy and, you know, my other ideas, just message me on Facebook, you know, whatever. I'm just trying to help this country. And in 2017, the biggest problem was money. So we had no money because, like, everything going on. and Russia had invaded Ukraine in 2014, and I knew that